Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Talk About Colouring. It is my Colouring with Stampin' Up series of videos and this is lesson 2. My name is Tatiana and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in the mid-north coast of New South Wales, Australia. So excited for you to join me. Oh, been a long day, I can't talk properly. Hopefully I can still stamp. No, I can always stamp. Stamping is amazing. I haven't stamped in a few days, so I need to stamp. Hello Irene, thanks for joining me. So I started a series of videos last Monday night all about colouring and using the Stampin' Up products to colour because I am a Stampin' Up demonstrator. I last week showed you how to stamp a stamp set, and the particular stamp set that we're using is called To a Wild Rose and it has 3-step stamping. So that means that we were able to stamp the colour. Now we're going to take the same ink pads, the same colours, same stamp set, and we're going to show you what a different look you can get. So I'll be creating the same card each week but using different colouring techniques so that you can compare what they look like. So that's the intro. Let's head over to the craft desk and get stamping. Okay, so these are the cards that we created last week. So all we did was stamp the outline in black or in the matching color and stamp the part 2 and 3. Good evening, Megan. So that was stamping it. This week we're going to be using the same supplies. So we're again using the To a Wild Rose and the Wild Rose framelits. Same ink pads, which is Bermuda Bay, Daffodil Delight and Granny Apple Green. But we're going to be introducing the concept of colouring with the ink from the ink pads or using the ink refill. So I'll show both. Hopefully it won't be too long of a lesson. You had rain. Well, rain is always a good thing. And card class on Sunday. Yay! Excellent. Now we'll be using the aqua painters. These come in a set of 2 with 2 different sized brush tips. If I bring that up higher, it's probably good. So this one's a bit bigger and that one's a bit smaller. And then also we will be using the Stampin' Up blender pen. This is a dual-ended pen and it comes in a box of 3 and the nib is clear. So if I do that, you can see, and you're able to pick up ink with it and use it as a colouring pen. That's very exciting. But first we need to stamp. So I've got the big block out because I'm going to use it as a palette for when I use the ink refills. Now let's get, tonight all we need for stamping is the outlines. What is my next card class? I am still thinking. No, I'm not thinking. My next card class is using the Shine Bright. What's it called? Shine Bright. I got it right. Yes, my next online class will be using the Shine Bright stamp set from the holiday catalogue. Details probably next week. Been a crazy week. Last week, the kids going back to school. So I've just mounted the rose and we'll start with that. Now, because we are going to be using the aqua painters, I recommend using the watercolor paper. This is the Fluid 100. It comes in packets as this. It's 100% cotton watercolor paper. It is absolutely beautiful to work with. The sheets are 5 by 7 inches and you get 10 in a packet. Hello Joan and welcome and thank you for sharing. As always, I might just, you're welcome Megan. Gonna line this up down here. Okay. Now I'm going to stamp this both in black ink and in our color ink. I'm going to start with the color ink because it takes up less mess. So I've just inked up my stamp. Now the reason why I'm using the Stamparatus is because you can see watercolor paper is textured. So the first impression I get, there are gaps in the stamping. This is not to do with the stamp or the Stamparatus. This is purely because there is texture to the cardstock. And by using my Stamparatus, I'm able to re-ink and stamp once again to get more of a solid fill, line fill. Great, so I'm happy with that. And when we will be using the blends pens, we will be needing the watercolor paper. You can use the blends pens on the watercolor paper, but it's a little unnecessary. So I've got a piece of shimmery white here. And I'm just going to use the Stamparatus for the ease of it, really. There we go. Perfect. Now, I need to give that a wipe. And what I love using with the Stamparatus is the chamois. Makes it so easy to wipe clean your stamp. Bing, bang, boom. Put that to the side. Now we're going to need the black outline as well. Ooh, it just fits. If I keep that page right there, I'm going to be able to fit both in. Now, aqua painters are water, and so we need a black outline that isn't water-based, because otherwise the black ink will bleed into our painting. This is water-based ink and it could bleed, but because I'm using the same color to color it in, it doesn't matter if it bleeds. It kind of makes it unique. This is the Tuxedo, no, not Tuxedo, it is the Stays On ink in Jet Black. Going to forget that I forgot to re-ink my card. Ink that up and stamp. And again, this is the watercolor paper, so I will need to ink that a few times. That and my ink pad is getting a little bit dry. Press that down. This is a photopolymer stamp set, meaning it is clear, and for that reason I've got a foam mat underneath to give it that bit of cushioning for when we stamp. Rub that down nicely and beautifully stamped. Repeating with this page here, go right here. I'm just using my magnet to hold the paper in place. This is, again, the Stays On ink, and this is the shimmery white cardstock for the use with the blender pen. Now, not to be mixed up with the stamping blends pen. These are different. The Stampin' Blends are sold in sets of 2 colors, and they blend, and we will be looking at them later in this course. But tonight we are looking at the Stampin' Up Blender pen. Perfect. Now, with the Stays On ink, it is a permanent ink color, and you need a special cleaner. It's the Stays On ink cleaner. I'm going to rub that onto my stamp straight away, and where I got the ink there, because I don't want it to stay on my stamp pad. Ink pad. Stamp. Stamp is the word. I want it to come off nicely. Now we just need our leaves. Line this back up. And last week we did the leaves in 2 colors, remember? And we're going to do the same this week. Again, I'm using the Stamparatus just so that I get the alignment correct. The 2 colors we used were Granny Apple Green and re-stamping that because that's the watercolor paper. Perfect. And I'll give that a wipe. And I'll stamp the other color, Bermuda Bay, straight away. Scoot that down a bit. Perfect. And Bermuda Bay. Stamp. And stamp. Beautiful. And switch to the shimmery white. We'll be able to fit it in there. Guess I'll start with Bermuda Bay, mix it up. Bermuda Bay, stamp, and then Granny Apple Green will go next to it as so. Ink, ink, ink. Granny Apple Green is done. And we need 2 sets of a black ink. Again, this stays on. This is probably the most fiddly bit, the prep, but I wanted you to see it because I wanted to explain why I'm using the certain inks. So there is logic behind it all. Just aligning that in a way that I can get another one in. Perfect. It's got green underneath. Again, this stays on, which we have to re-ink that pad up, but I won't do that now. Stamp that. There's a little bit of shadow of green in there, but that's okay, because I will be colouring that in, and that shadow won't be noticeable. May have to stamp that one up there. I was trying to economize on the paper. Should have cut it down a bit. It's okay. That moved, so we'll leave that. And again, onto the watercolor paper. Going to line it all up first. Ooh. Come on. There. There will be good. Goes on ink. Give that a good rub. Transfer the ink. And one final leaf is required. In future lessons I will be pre-stamping everything, but tonight I wanted to explain the different inks and the different paper and how to stamp on the watercolor paper to get that perfect stamping outline because it is textured. Multiple lessons today. That's the stays on done. Give that a little wipe down. And we can get colouring, the purpose of this series. We'll start with the aqua painter and our watercolour. Now for these, because I want quite a bit of ink, I'm going to be using the re-inkers. I'm going to start with taking the re-inker and putting a drop or two, preferably on the block, not onto the table like I have cleverly done there, but you get the picture. And I'm going to be using my aqua painters. I might start with the bigger tip tonight. So these aqua painters are refillable. You fill them up with water. You can just unscrew, add the water. I just run it under the tap. There is a marking there as to how much water to put in. I just fill it up and then kind of squeeze out the excess water. Hey Chloe, thanks for joining me. How's the card prep going? So I've just squeezed some water out and I'm diluting the ink that we have there, and now I'm going to paint that on. It's like paint almost, but paint is thick and not transparent. This is very much transparent, so we're going to still see the outline of our stamp. And what is good about that, hello Renee, thanks for joining me as well. What is good about the transparency of this is that we can build the color. Now I have just simply colored that all in a single layer of color, and I'm going to do the same on to the Daffodil Delight stamped version of the same flower. We're doing that just to compare the different looks. There is definitely way more, and I should exclaim that I am no expert in watercoloring. This is all based on my own experimentations as I've made cards. But I have done reading. I have read and looked and I've studied art. So I have some knowledge. Now we've just laid that color. Now I'm going to just grab some more ink from my block there that was less diluted, and I'm going to use that and add in. So as you can see, that has darkened the areas. I'm adding it, and this is a technique called wet on wet. So the base layer is still wet, and by adding a darker color it spreads, or more ink, you could add a different color, but we're sticking to our colors tonight. But by adding it on top, the watercolor has paper, the Fluid 100 has absorbed the water into it, and that spreads the ink out. So this is one of my favorite ways to get that two-toned look. Hello Deb, thank you for joining me. I'm doing the same on this one. We're getting a different look simply because I used the ink, the same color ink, to color it. Now it does mean it could spread in the direction I don't want it to, because I've colored the entire area. To avoid that, if you wanted to, you would work in sections and wait until that section dries. But I'm quite happy for it to just spread. That is using the ink refill and your aqua painter. Now to clean the brush, what I do is I just squeeze it a bit and take my chamois and clean it on the chamois. You've got to remember the different time zones. What time is it for you, Renee? And there we go. I should mention that if you see a little red live just there, you are watching me live on Facebook, but I will be also uploading this video to YouTube, so please do comment on YouTube, but know that I won't be responding straight away because it is not live. So I've just put some Granny Apple Green, and I'm going to do the exact same process, diluting the ink with some water by just simply squeezing my aqua painter. And remember, one of these leaves is going to be Granny Apple Green and the other one will be Bermuda Bay. And again, I'm just colouring with the more diluted colour the entire area, and then I'm going to go back in with less diluted ink and add it in. Queensland time. Yes, the change in clocks. Though I hear, if Megan may correct me, that it makes it better for you to watch the block. So there we go. You can now catch me live and the block later. Hello Priscilla, thank you for joining me. This time I'm just going to add that undiluted ink down the middle of the leaf so that the stem bit has the darker. And again, over here, very simple. You can certainly let the layer dry and then on top, and I won't be doing that because I don't particularly like watching paint dry, and I don't think that'll make a very exciting YouTube video or Facebook Live. Let's sit here and wait for it to dry. But that's something you can experiment with. So now I'm just doing the exact same thing. I'm glad you got a kick out of that, Megan. Again with the Bermuda Bay. And what is neat about aqua painters is that if you feel like you've put the color down too dark before it dries, wipe your aqua painter off, drip out some water, and then just go back and you can pick up that color. Wipe and pick up that color. Can you see what I'm doing? And you can just see ever so slightly it's picking up, and each time I clean off my brush means that I'm not adding more ink on top, I'm wiping off what is there. Kind of wanted that to be more diluted, so for that reason it's very handy to be able to show you that trick, because it's quite wet and more water will just dilute it. Oh great, I'm glad you thought so. Oh, apparently the children want feeding. Oh, damn that family. Isn't once a week enough? Go enjoy feeding your family, Megan, and you can watch the recording later. All good. Doing the same technique by adding that undiluted into the center, and it spreads out. I kind of just let the fluid paper, the fluid 100 paper, do its thing and spread the ink for that tone variation. Now I didn't use the other aqua painter. I could have, it's just a smaller tip. We will put that to the side and we'll let this one dry as well. And we're going to bring in our shimmery white paper, and this time we're going to take the ink. So you can still use the ink that is directly from the bottles like I have been, but with the blender pen I find it easier to pick up some ink onto the lid. They're old enough to cook dinner for you, so you should tell them, Megan. Go tell them to cook dinner. Okay. This is the ink pad, this Daffodil Delight, and what I'm doing is I'm just squeezing the lid. Now the ink pad itself, when we flip, you'll see, is on the lid, and then there's the base. And the idea of the squeezing was to get some ink into our base. That just gives us a bit of a palette. So this is, I could have done this for the aqua painters and just mixed it all in there. I just wanted to show you the different options you have. And I'm going to take my blender pen. Firstly, I'm going to make sure it's nice and clean. You can see that it was clearing. And I'm going to pick up some Daffodil Delight and start brushing it on. Now this is, as you keep brushing, it starts diluting and going lighter. And that is the kind of look you're going to get. So when I pick up some ink, I try to keep to that bottom area where I would put the darker yellow in. I'm using shimmery white paper because that can hold on to some color and water and a bit of moisture dampness. Regular paper would start to peel as I start doing this. I'm picking up some of the lighter ink, and then you kind of ruin your picture when you peel. It starts peeling because you've colored over it. And just try to do nice light brush strokes. As you can see, it's a very different look from the aqua painters. You can, yes, the aqua painters. You can use the watercolor paper, but I don't for these because even though they're applying moisture to the paper, it's not so much that it's going to really need that thicker paper. The shimmery white is absolutely perfect for this. It's got enough thickness to it, an ability to absorb without peeling. The regular Whisper White, you could use Whisper White thick. It just doesn't seem to work as well. It's a different texture on top of the paper and it won't withstand that going over as much. Now I've done this again twice because I wanted to show the different looks using the Daffodil Delight ink as the color that we stamp versus the black ink. Now as we did with the aqua painter, I'm just going to go back into the ink and darken these areas. Now I'm not going to color it all tonight because you get the gist. I will finish these off and then I will share the results, but I do want to complete one full set. So you can see this allows you to build more color compared to the aqua painter. This is really good for smaller, finer details compared to the aqua painter. The aqua painter does need that bigger area. And you get these strokes out of this one. So it's different. I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's just, it's so different. And it's showing you your options. You can keep working on that, keep adding in color and getting a really lovely depth of color by adding more layers. Just might add a bit more to this area here. I feel like there would be a lot more shadow here. You can play with fun, you can exaggerate those. Now, when you finish with a color, the very important bit is on a scrap, or as I do on the side, because I know that I'm not going to use these little bits, is to clean the nib off. Keep coloring it out until it becomes clear again. And make sure you rotate the pen when you're doing this so that you know that you got all of that ink off. Now, I'll color the black version ink myself. Again, with the Granny Apple Green, I've got a bit of ink there. Don't really need to press that in. Pick that up, and this is a smaller area, so I'm getting less streaky view here. Oh, it's supposed to color. It's supposed to do the colored one, not the black ink one. Oh, it doesn't matter. Now with the ink pad, as you can see, mine kind of is a bit of a seesaw at the moment because I've got it open, plugged in the battery, to prevent it from seesawing, if that's a word. Just if you push the ink pad in a little bit, it sits nice and flat. Down the middle, some extra colour. So again, makes a great sound. Well, I like it anyway. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, the sound, but it's like I'm really drawing, creating. More dark. And because I've got more control over this, I could go and add the darker areas to all those little stems that have been stamped out. And again, don't forget to clean the nib, the tip. So this basically means that any ink pad you have, you can turn into a coloring tool using your stamping blender pen. Oh, this one doesn't have ink, so once again I'll just close it up squish. It takes a little bit of muscle work. We need a bit more, bit of the palm, heel of your hand, and then if you slide it in slightly, it becomes less like a seesaw. And we're doing the coloured outline version. Spreading that over, and remember it does see the brush strokes unlike the watercolor paper and the aqua painter, so be aware which way you brush stroke. Kind of showing. I'm kind of following the contours of the leaf so that it matches the design. It just looks better. If I went sideways or up and down, you'd be able to see that, and that won't, if you want that look, go for it. There is no right or wrong if you like it, but my tip would be to follow the contour of the leaf or the flower or whatever it is that you're colouring. It's nice and simple. I really like that feathery look there we're getting. And again, I'm going to wipe that clean. Great. Now we can just assemble our cards and we can show the difference. We'll assemble. Again, I will be using the Sahara Sand card base. That was the colour that we all agreed on last week. And I agree, it does look the best. I'm just folding, I've pre-cut it. And I'm going to grab, where's that ink? Not ink, there. My leaf. Because if we bring it in from last week, you see I stamped some of the leaves so that it would add interest to our base of our card in Sahara Sand. So I've got the Sahara Sand ink pad and the leaf. And I'm going to stamp once down here. I did stamp off last week. That was the big difference. Got 2 sides to every paper, and I will remember to stamp off this time. So ink, stamp off once down here, stamp off. Hey Judy, how are you? There, and I'll prep the other base while we're here. Just roughly, it's giving a bit more texture. I kind of got the idea from the catalogue, which I showed everything last week, so please go back and watch lesson 1 if you're not sure what I'm talking about right now. You'll be able to see. And it's time to die cut. Bring that back in, and where did I put the dies? There they are. This set is wonderful because it has matching dies so that we can cut out nice and easy. Line it up. The trickiest part is to line up and find, right, these are our new dies. Stampin' Up now has gone directly to the manufacturer for the dies, and so these hug the image perfectly. I've just put a piece of washi tape there. It's retired washi tape from one of our kits that we sold last year, and it was not something I would use up. I'm not a massive washi fan or washi user, but it is perfect for holding dies into place. I'll just go run that through the die cutting machine. Not an inky day until you've got ink on your thumb. Got to wipe that off before I touch anything else. There, better. There we go. Into the leaf. Oh, they look so pretty. lining that one up. And I'll grab the watercolor one. That has started to dry. So you can see the bleeding continued through the watercolor version, and if you wanted, you could go back now that it's more dry and add some more. I am going to leave it because this is an introduction to coloring, not a advanced technique to coloring. Could do with an assistant helping me cut, or a second set of dies. Just want to get these leaves out as well, and that way we can really compare these 3 cards, so the one from last week and 2 from this week. One leaf. You can see you get more intense color using the Fluid 100 paper and the Aqua Painter. You're able to get a thicker layer of color on, essentially, which it's just a different look. There is no right or wrong. I'm going to keep saying that throughout the series. Perfect. Now we can line up flowers. We used dimensionals. Where did they go? See my black ones. Ah. Escaping. So I used 3 dimensionals in the back of that rose just to make sure it's sitting nicely on our card front. And then by raising the rose, I am able to slip the leaves in underneath. And we'll use the liquid multi-purpose glue for the leaves. I just plonk some down onto the leaves centers. Ooh. Well done. Now, if you get accidents like that, wipe them up, let it dry and set, and then take a white eraser on top, and that'll take the rest of it off and remove the tackiness. Perfect. Keeping the layouts the same so we can compare and contrast. I do feel like I'm a bit repetitive tonight, but I can't decide which one is my favorite. I like the texture, in visual texture in this one. It's got that brush stroke, but then I like the tones and the intensity of color in this one. If I just put that one next to it, so this is from last week. That was stamping the color. So you can see you get very different results. I feel like this should be bing bang boom, kind of intenser color as we get here. So that was pretty intense, but you can see that. Anyway, I am yip yapping now. That is lesson 2 of Let's Talk About Coloring, and thank you so much for watching. I do sell all the products that I have used tonight in my online store. You can access that at bit.ly /shop with Tatiana. The capitals do matter. And everyone gets a handmade thank you card from me. If you spend $50 or more, you also get a free gift, which I'll send out in November. And exciting news, this Wednesday, so today is the 21st, so on Wednesday, there is a 24-hour stamp sale. I do hope I've got that day right. Wednesday, yes. Wednesday is the 23rd, 24-hour sale. And this is double-sided. There are 54 stamp sets listed. Check out my Facebook page because I have put pictures of each of these stamp sets. They're all reduced by 15% off, which is amazing. You don't see this happen very often. In fact, I probably only see it once a year, and that is now. So let me know if you need any help deciding what stamp sets you will need or want, or kind of fill in your collection. Thank you so much for watching me. I do a Facebook Live on Wednesdays at 10 AM Australian Eastern Standard Daylight Time. That will be just a product of the week stamp set, which is the Itty Bitty Christmas this week. If you want to continue watching the Let's Talk About Colouring series, that'll be Monday night Australian Eastern Standard Time at 8 PM. That's daylight saving, so New South Wales time, not Queensland. Queensland will be 7 PM. And sorry, the rest of Australia, I haven't quite worked out the time differences. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all later. Bye for now.